They say some men are born to change the world. But what if one man was born to conquer it? By the age of 30, he had never lost a battle. By 32, he ruled an empire that stretched across 3 continents. And by 33, he was dead. This is the story of the king who became a god, the warrior who wept because there were no more worlds to conquer, and the mystery that haunts us still. What could have been? July 20th, 356, BC, Pella, Macedonia. On the night Alexander was born, the Temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, burned to the ground. Ancient texts claim the goddess herself was too busy attending Alexander's birth to save her own temple. Coincidence? Perhaps. But it was the first of many impossible events that would surround this man's life. His father, Philip II, was a battle-hardened king with one eye. His mother, Olympias, was rumored to practice dark rituals and sleep with snakes in her bed. She whispered to her son that his true father was not Philip, but Zeus himself, king of the gods. Whether Alexander believed this is unclear. What is certain is that she raised him to believe he was destined for divinity. From childhood, Alexander was different. While other princes played, he studied. While they feasted, he trained. His tutor was none other than Aristotle, the greatest philosopher of the ancient world. For 3 years, the old sage taught the young prince poetry, philosophy, medicine, and the art of thinking like a god among men. At age 12, Alexander faced a test that would define him. A wild horse named Bucephalus, ox head, had been brought before King Philip. The beast was magnificent but vicious. No man could tame him. Philip ordered the horse taken away. But Alexander saw something no one else did. The horse wasn't vicious. He was afraid of his own shadow. Alexander turned the horse toward the sun, gently stroking his neck, whispering words lost to history. And then, in front of the entire court, the boy mounted the untamable beast. Philip's voice deep and proud. "My son, seek out a kingdom worthy of you. Macedonia is too small." Bucephalus would carry Alexander across the known world. For 18 years, man and beast were inseparable. And when the horse finally died, Alexander built an entire city in his honor. This was not just a king. This was a man who loved with the intensity of a god. 336 BC. Alexander is 20. His father, Philip, has just married his 7th wife. The kingdom celebrates. But in the shadows, conspiracy breeds. In an instant, the king of Macedonia lies dead. The assassin is cut down immediately. But questions remain. Who ordered the killing? Was it a spurned lover, a political rival, or was it closer to home? Some historians believe Olympias orchestrated her own husband's murder. Others suspect Alexander himself knew. The truth died with the assassin, but what followed was unprecedented. Within days, Alexander eliminated every potential rival. Within weeks, he was crowned king. Within months, he would begin the greatest military campaign in human history. At 22, Alexander set his sights on an empire that had humiliated Greece for 2 centuries. Persia, the largest, wealthiest, most powerful empire on earth. Its king, Darius III, commanded 1 million soldiers. Alexander had 40,000. The world expected a massacre. They were right, just not the one they imagined. May 334 BC, the Battle of Granicus. Alexander didn't send scouts. He didn't test defenses. He charged directly into the heart of the Persian army across a river, uphill with arrows raining down. His generals begged him to wait. He ignored them. This wasn't tactics. This was madness, or genius. He nearly died that day. An axe split his helmet. A Persian noble's sword was raised for the death blow. But Alexander's bodyguard, Clytus, saved him. Remember that name, Clytus, because this moment, this debt, would lead to tragedy. 1 year later, the Battle of Issus. Darius himself led the Persian forces. 600,000 men versus Alexander's 40,000. But Alexander had something Darius didn't. He had nothing to lose. He fought like a man with death in his eyes and immortality in his heart. Alexander did the impossible. He charged through the entire Persian army to reach Darius himself. And when the god king of Persia saw this young Macedonian warrior bearing down on him, eyes blazing with fury, Darius fled. The emperor of the world's greatest empire ran. Before his final confrontation with Persia, Alexander encountered one of history's greatest puzzles, the Gordian knot. Legend said whoever untied this impossibly complex knot would rule all of Asia. For centuries, the wisest men in the world had tried and failed. Alexander studied it for exactly 1 minute. Then he drew his sword and cut the knot in half. This was Alexander's genius. He didn't play by the rules. He didn't accept limitations. Where others saw problems, he saw opportunities. Where others saw impossible, he saw inevitable. This is the mindset that conquered the world. One by one, the great cities fell. Egypt crowned him pharaoh. Babylon welcomed him as liberator. Persepolis, the jewel of the Persian Empire, burned for 5 days straight. Some say Alexander ordered it in revenge. Others say he was too drunk to stop it. The truth, like much of Alexander's story, is lost to time. But conquest takes a toll. Alexander was changing. The boy who studied philosophy was becoming a god king who demanded worship. The warrior who fought beside his men was now Persian in dress and manner. His Macedonian generals began to whisper, "We've lost him." One night during a drunken feast, Clytus made a mistake. He criticized Alexander in front of everyone, reminded him that without his father Philip, without his Macedonian soldiers, he was nothing. Alexander's face went cold, and then Alexander killed him, the man who had saved his life at Granicus, his oldest friend, dead by his own hand in a moment of rage. For 3 days, Alexander locked himself away, refusing food and water, crying for what he'd done. The man who conquered the world couldn't conquer himself. Still, he pushed forward. Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, places no Greek had ever seen. His men were exhausted, diseased, dying. They had marched 20,000 miles. They begged him to stop, but Alexander's eyes were always on the horizon. At the Ephesus River in India, Alexander learned the one lesson he could never accept: limits. His army refused to march further. For the first time in his life, Alexander faced an enemy he couldn't defeat: his own men's mortality, their humanity. Ancient historians say Alexander wept. He stood at the edge of the known world and cried because there were no more worlds to conquer. But perhaps he wept for another reason. Perhaps at age 31, Alexander finally understood. The world he conquered was infinite, but his time was not. June 10th, 323 BC Babylon. After conquering everything, after achieving immortality in legend, if not in life, Alexander fell ill. High fever, convulsions, agony. For 12 days he suffered. His generals asked, "Who will inherit your empire?" Alexander whispered his final words, "To the strongest." He died at 32. The cause? Malaria, typhoid, poisoning, no one knows. His body was preserved in honey and gold. His empire immediately fractured into a 40-year war between his generals. Everything he built collapsed within a generation. But here's what didn't collapse: the idea of Alexander. Over 70 cities bear his name. From Egypt to India, cultures merged because of him. Greek philosophy reached Asia. Eastern wisdom reached Europe. For the first time in history, the world was connected. Julius Caesar wept at Alexander's statue because at 32, Alexander had conquered the world, and Caesar had conquered nothing. Napoleon studied Alexander's tactics. Every great conqueror since has compared themselves to him. Why? Because Alexander asked a question that haunts humanity still. What are the limits of human potential? He was tutored by Aristotle, yet died from a fever. He conquered 3 continents, yet couldn't control his own rage. He became a living god, yet died a broken man. He wanted immortality, yet lasted barely 3 decades. Was he a hero or a tyrant, a genius or a madman, a liberator or a destroyer? Perhaps he was all of these. Perhaps that's the point. Alexander wasn't perfect. He was human. Impossibly, dramatically, devastatingly human. And yet, here we are. 2,300 years later, still speaking his name, still telling his story, still wondering what drove him, what haunted him, what could have been if he'd lived. That's the real mystery of Alexander the Great. Not how he conquered the world, but why we can't stop thinking about the man who did. Maybe it's because in some dark corner of our souls, we all want to believe what he believed, that one person, against all odds, against all reason, can change everything. Alexander the Great died at 32, but the question he left behind, that lives forever. What would you do with unlimited courage in 33 years?